Investment lessons from Harvard and Yale. All right. And this is from Spencer Jacob from the Wall Street Journal. And I still subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. At some point, I'll probably drop them. But they just gone way lunatic fringe against Trump and his tariffs. It's actually embarrassing. Even the Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, isn't so anti-Trump tariff as the Wall Street Journal. And that's amazing because the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, they're not pro-American. I'm just telling you right now. Anyway, so stocks look to resume their losing ways, and so does a dollar, which is at multi-year lows against currencies of major trading partners. Really? So here's a U.S. versus a pound sterling. I guess you could say we're multi-year lows right there, but I mean, we go multi-year highs too. We're going to look at the U.S. dollar versus the euro. Let's see, the U.S. dollar versus the euro, because they talk about this. I guess from 2022 to today, yeah, we're multi-year lows, but we're well above where we've been historically. It's just trite. They're saying the Japanese yen, that's multi-year lows. Come on, guys. Canadian dollar, multi-year lows? I don't think so. Anyway, I hate that stuff. It's like they have this narrative, and I hate it. It's a lie of omission. I'm just so sick of lies of omission, dude. Okay, are we really at multi-year lows? Okay, from 2022, sure, but you can see the spike from 2022. I wonder why. As we're raising interest rates, have made the dollar more valuable. Who would have thought? Anyway, let's keep going, because that's not the point of this video. One of the few bright spots is gold, now at a fresh record. Okay, they're packed with brainiacs, but Ivy League colleges sure lack street smarts. Some market wisdom they're about to relearn is that liquidity is always there except when you need it. Going back to the barbell, we need liquidity. You don't have liquidity if you're fully invested. And all these people say, buy the dips, buy the dips. I'm always like, what did you buy the dips with? Well, because if you're fully invested, you don't have any cash to buy the dips. You keep some money idle on the side, not just to buy the dips, which I don't think you should do. I mean, you can, I did. But you keep some cash on the side just in case you need liquidity. Thus the barbell. I cannot stress this enough. Let's keep going. After costs rose and donation plunged during the financial crisis, Harvard's endowment had to come up with cash in a hurry because of its complex investments. It dumped assets at a distressed price and was forced to borrow money. Mark-to-market accounting right there. It dumped assets at distressed prices because it needed to come up with cash, and there's no one on the buy side. So the distressed assets kept going down, 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 down. This is the mark-to-market accounting that Barney Frank, thank you, Barney, saved us from, which is the beginning of the run from March 9, 2009 to the mass run we've had since then. It's forced to borrow money. We don't want you to sell assets and borrow money. That's absolutely not what you're supposed to do, even though they're packed with brainiacs. And we look at long-term capital management, brainiacs, Nobel Prize winners, economists, and all that, and they almost took the whole entire investment world down. University endowments are now more committed than ever to expensive, hard-to-sell alternatives like private equity. And they're more dependent on them, too. Last year, Harvard relied on the endowment for 37% of its budget, up from about a fifth 20 years ago. So 20%, basically doubling the reliance on their endowment. It worked until it didn't. Instead of elite returns, the largest endowments did worse last fiscal year. Small ones, which don't have investment offices that pay Wall Street salaries, did best. The gap could widen. When stocks plunge, PE funds can make an endowment look good because of a lack of updated market prices, i.e. a lack of liquidity. There's not a lot of trades, not a lot of volume to show what their current price is because of lack of liquidity. Eventually, though, they must reflect reality when someone has to sell. Private equity isn't magic. Its returns resemble small and microcap stocks juiced by borrowed money. In fact, indices tracking such stocks are in a bear market right now, down by 25%, and losses could be magnified with leverage. That's why you never buy on leverage. Another drag, cost. Investment consultant Richard Ennis said that Ivy League investments would have been 20% more valuable if they just invested in a classic stock and bond mix most people have in their 401ks. The big reason? The expense. The all-in fees is a hefty 3 to 4%. You can see Princeton's endowment is almost $4 million per person, student. Columbia's is about 400,000. Tax them like everybody else gets taxed. The strategy of reaping extra returns by holding illiquid investments called the Yale model. A guy named David Swensen. David Swensen. I remember everyone and their mom were screaming bloody murder about David Swensen. As a dot-com of the financial crisis, I can't remember. But in the 2000s, like, oh, the Yale model is the way to go. Alternative investments like wood chip power plants, like forestry and all the agriculture. Over the last 3 years, though, Yale's endowment has earned measly returns of 0.8, 1.8, and 5.7%. Ironically, Yale has been the first to blink. Plans of selling a whopping $6 billion in private equity. Oh, good. It's also time to do that, though. As Wall Street Journal put it last week, PE faces a perfect storm. The sums managers owes existing clients are at record as deal activity slumps, and it could be the storm of the century for elite colleges facing an attack from the Trumpster, the GOAT, and extra taxes and possibly revocation of their nonprofit status. Woo! Get rid of the nonprofit status. All right. Anyway, so I find that very interesting. So I want to show you something here. This channel called, I haven't done a video on it in a while. I just kind of, frankly, probably should delete the channel. But I like some of the videos I did. It's called The Mainstream with Josh. And I was just doing some updates on Maine back in 2022 and 23, giving the gas stove, the heat pump push, the EV mandates, their idiot governor and whatnot. Because, I'm from Maine, because all the good-looking cool guys are from Maine. But Maine had a very interesting story, is that this chick, this is a video I did, something very fishy about the highest earners at Maine's public universities and private universities. One of the highest earners in Maine, turned out she was just an art, in San Diego, she ran this art comp. What is it, like a person who shows you the art, all right? She had a degree in art history or something like that. She went to San Diego to be the art, in some art place. I don't know, because I'm not dumb. I don't know what these things are called, but you know what I'm talking about. The person's in charge of an art gallery. And then she was hired to run the University of Maine or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. Portfolio, the endowment. University of Maine, Bowdoin, one of those colleges. I can't remember. And then she went on to some, I don't know, Ivy League or SUNY, not SUNY, but some rich, even bigger rich kid school in New York. And I said, how? How is this chick doing that? I mean, she was an art history major. Somehow went to Maine to run some hedge. I think it was for Bowdoin College, actually. And now it's in New York City running some Stony Brook. I don't know what that was called. Something like that. I don't know. Some rich kid school. And I said, this doesn't make sense. Talk about nepotism or whatever. I don't know if nepotism or freaking, women privilege or some hot chick is hired by some guy said, hey, baby, you know what I'm saying? And then next thing you know, I said, this is weird. And and she's making bank all the time. And I'm not just picking on her. It happens all the time with dudes too. I get it. But this was important to me because it's Maine. I said, why is she one of the highest paid persons in Maine? That didn't make any sense. And I haven't read. I'll put a link in the video if you want to watch it. But I just this is why we need to tax these people, dude. Because they just suck. They suck. They're costing people exorbitant amount of money. They're not freaking providing lower tuition for the students. People are still coming out of massive amounts of debt without jobs they can pay off the debt. Everyone's winning except for the students. The colleges are winning because the government's financing the debt. The employees are winning. They got administrators. Even the professors aren't doing that great. The administration is growing like leaps and bounds. The professorships are not. And it's just a scam. The whole thing's a freaking scam, dude. And so that's why we got to tax these guys. Because I had to change backgrounds, by the way, just in case you're wondering, because my thing was dying. My laptop was dying. Anyway, they got to be taxed to keep it fair and equitable. Because what right now is that it's kind of like a credit union. Credit union goes more and more into private businesses. They're being subsidized by the people they're competing against. That's just not right. For-profit banks are subsidizing credit unions to go and compete against them. And that's not the purpose of a credit union to open. I have my business account at Navy Federal Credit Union. That's great. But for-profit businesses should not be in the business of subsidizing their competitors. It's just not right. And that's the same exact thing that's happening at college. It was even worse because colleges are being subsidized by us, the taxpayer. And it's sickening. All right. God bless. Love your thoughts. Smash that like button. We'll see you.